here are the answers to review sheet number 2. So for the given statement, if two angles are congruent, then they have equal measures. Two angles are congruent would be the hypothesis. They have equal measures would be the conclusion. The converse would be if two angles have equal measures or measure, then they are congruent. The inverse is if two angles are not congruent, then they do not have equal measures. The contrapositive is if two angles do not have equal measure, then they are not congruent. Okay, so now to see if it's a biconditional, we have to see if the original statement was true and then if the converse is true. So if two angles are congruent, then they have equal measure. That's true. The converse, if two angles have equal measure, then they are congruent, is also true. So that means that it's a good definition and we can write a biconditional. So we would say two angles are congruent if and only if they have equal measures. Okay, moving along to the law of detachment. If an angle is a cow, if an animal is a cow, then it is a mammal. So if an animal is a cow, it is a mammal. Then it says dogs are mammals. In order to use the law of detachment, it has to be that P, then Q is true, and then P is true. This is not P. This is Q. And so we cannot use the law of detachment here. For the second question, it says, if a point is a midpoint, then it divides a segment into two congruent segments. M is the midpoint of segment AB. This is a P, this is a Q. This is a P. We can now conclude Q. So we can say M divides AB into two congruent segments. You can also say, shorter, you could say AM is congruent to MB. Okay, so either one of those. Okay, law of syllogism is a little bit more complicated. If it is sunny, then the solar panels are absorbing energy. If it is not sunny, then the solar panels are storing energy. In order for us to use the law of syllogism, we have to be P then Q has to be true, then Q implies R has to be true. This is a P, this is a Q. This is not a Q. This is like an R, and this is like something else. And so we cannot use the law of syllogism here. But for the next one, it says, if a shape is a parallelogram, then it is a quadrilateral. If a shape is a quadrilateral, then it has four sides. Here we can use the law of syllogism. We can say, if a shape is a parallelogram, then it has four sides. Number 4, it says that angle OEG is 152, and we're trying to find angle GEM. So first what we should say is that the measure of angle OEM, which is this one right here, is 90. We know that because it's showing that this is a right angle here. So that would be the definition of a right angle. Okay. Then what I'm going to say is that the measure of angle OEM plus the measure of angle GEM equals the measure of angle OEG. And I can say that by the angle addition postulate. Now I'll substitute in OEM, which I know is 90, and OEG, which I know is 152. That'll be substitution. If you subtract 90, you get 62 degrees. And so that would be the subtraction property of equality. And then we have the angle GEM. Okay, next we're writing a proof. So when you're writing a proof, put statements over here, reasons over here. Your first statement should always be the given. And if you have more than one, you might need to write it more than once. So KM bisects angle LKJ. We also know that LKM is 4x plus 22, and MKJ is 8x minus 14. Okay, both of these, all of these are given. I like to label over here what it gives me. So LKM is 4x plus 22, and then MKJ is 8x minus 14. So first, because KM is a bisector, LKM has to be congruent to MKJ by the definition of an angle bisector. Or you could just say definition of a bisector. This means that their measures are equal. That's the definition of congruence. Because their measures are equal, I can go ahead and substitute these expressions. That's substitution. And then I will solve the equation. First, I would subtract 4x from both sides. So that's the subtraction property of equality. Then I would add 14. That's the addition property of equality. And then I need to divide by 4. That's the division property of equality. Now we're almost done, but the prove is that x is 9, and we have that 9 is x. So the last step is to flip it around, and I kind of ran out of room here, but underneath this I'm going to put the symmetric property. So it's the symmetric property that allows us to flip that around. Okay, so number 6 is just for honors. So in number 6, they tell us that M is the midpoint, so that's dividing these into two congruent segments. AM is 3x squared plus 4x. MB is 4x plus 27. So because M is the midpoint, and these are congruent, we can set these equal to each other. I don't have to justify my steps, I'm just doing math. Okay, so these are going to be equal, and then now I have to solve. So I can start by subtracting 4x on both sides, and that leaves me with 3x squared equals 27. Then I should divide by 3. I get x squared equals 9. And now I'm going to use the square root property, and I get x equals positive and negative 3. Now remember, They might both work, they might not both work. We're going to plug them in and see which one makes sense. So for x is 3, AM would be, so this would be 9, 27, this would be 12, so that would be 39. So that's like a logical answer, so that's fine. And B, if we plug in 3, 9 plus 27 would be 36. Wait. Okay, so just kidding. I found out where I messed that up. MB is 4x plus 27, so 4. So that's 12 plus 27, which is 39. Okay, so it had to be 39 because M is the midpoint and they should be the same. All right, so it's looking like 3 is fine. So now we should plug in negative 3. So to save space, I'm just going to come back in here, make all these negative. All right, so if x is negative 3, this is still positive 9 times 3 is 27, but this is going to be negative 12, which makes this segment 15. So that's still like fine. Over here, 4 times negative 3 is negative 12, plus 27 is 15. So that's also still fine. So both of these are logical answers, so you just have two solutions for x. You have positive 3 and negative 3. In the event that you get a segment that is negative, so like let's say we got negative 15 here, that wouldn't make sense. And so we would just disregard negative 3 as a solution and we would keep 3.